I'm fired up for this game. I mean, I'll just open the floor to you. What are your thoughts here on the Thursday before your trip to Philly here? What do you got for me, Greg?
Well, I'll tell you, I heard you just talking about before I came on, did the Kansas City Philly game from a couple weeks ago, did they have that game Philly circled? When we got our schedule this year, when we found out that our first game of December was going to be a rematch, we were there last year for what was a crazy NFC championship. I mean, it's unprecedented that a team in the NFC championship, let alone any game, isn't able to attempt a forward pass. They ended up changing the rule as a direct result. I mean, we watched that game unfold live in front of our eyes, and that second half was interesting to say the least. So now to get a rematch, not just a rematch, but a rematch at this time of the year, playoffs, final couple weeks of the season. December is always the most kind of intense run of the NFL season. I mean, you're right. This is the game of the year. I know last week's game, Philly-Buffalo was great. Philly-Chiefs has been great. Our Philly Dallas game from a few weeks back was amazing. To me, this is the game of the year up until this point, no question.
Well, I mean, Hassan Reddick, you call defensive ends who can sack quarterbacks game wreckers. He legitimately wrecked the game last year. Like, he legitimately, when he got Brock Purdy in his mitts and Brock Purdy needed surgery based on the hit. No, and then you were appropriately pointing out in real time, Greg, Brandon Ayuk was open. So had Reddick not arrived when he did, we could have had a game-tying moment right there. And instead, the game was wrecked 1,000,000% from last year.
Yeah, and I think that's the intrigue, right? I think, that all led to the offseason comments by Deebo Samuel. Oh, well, we played the whole game without a quarterback. We know it would have been different. That defense isn't as good. So the back and forth, I think the unknowns and the what ifs about how that game last year, that NFC championship last January, how would that have gone down if not for the early injury to Brock Purdy? And then the subsequent injury, the concussion to Josh Johnson, the backup who came in behind him. Again, we haven't ever seen a case where then Purdy had to then re-enter the game. McCaffrey went to Wildcat. It became unlike anything we've ever seen in the NFL. As far, it was like watching NFL football 100 years ago where there was no forward pass. It was interesting on that stage, but again, out of the control of anyone. It was just a freak circumstance. So I think all of that mystery, all of that what would have been of that game carries over now to this week.
And now this week, Purdy's healthy. He's also well past that 3-game losing streak stretch in which he was turnover prone and injury prone as well. And last year, McCaffrey was still kind of, looking for the consistency, even though he came out of the box terrific. He was still new, right? Now he is MVP of the team, potentially, if Purdy's not. And they're performing so well. Debo had his best game of the year. So how do you see this offense against a defense that was just lit up by Josh Allen? What do you got for me on that?
Yeah, and to me, I think Philly is such a great story. The way they win, their culture, what Nick Sirianni has done there, Jalen Hurts, MVP frontrunner. I mean, all of those things are obvious to anyone who's watched them over the last couple of years. The defensive secondary issue is something that I think everyone keeps an eye on going into every week. And I think that's, if there is one element of the team that hasn't quite kind of fused together to just be consistent week in and week out, here's what we know we're going to be. They have games where they're great, and then they have games where they kind of struggle to put a lid on the passing game and keep it under. So I think that's the element. But as far as Brock Purdy and that matchup, the thing that stands out to me about Brock is typically there's one of two buckets for most quarterbacks, right? They either are high completion percentage, and typically those balls are at or near the line of scrimmage. They're under 10 yards. There's not a real explosive element to the offense. But not only does Brock Purdy lead the league in completion percentage, he leads the league in passer rating, which, okay, he leads the league in yards per attempt, right? Which is telling me that he is maximizing every throw, their ability to generate explosives. They're the best in the league at it, run and pass. That, to me, is the part that I don't think people recognize. And I think part of it is he gets a lot of it obviously is it's a great scheme. Yes. A lot of it that he's got great skill players around him. Yes. But he's still playing quarterback at a really high level. And I think he needs his praise. He needs his due because he is the point guard of what is an albeit very talented and a very productive offense.
And then let's flip the script here. The Philadelphia offense, they have looked for 3 quarters in a couple of straight games as if they're beaten. It looks like the line of scrimmage is not theirs, despite them being the kings of the brotherly shove. And then all of a sudden, poof, things completely magically change, or not magically change. They have the personnel and the grit and the fortitude to overcome and win. What are you seeing on the offensive side of the ball for Philadelphia that we can all hang our hats on? Here, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious stuff is everything you just said. The offensive line, Kelsey, Mailata, Lane Johnson. Hopefully he's back this week. He missed last week's game against Buffalo with kind of re-injuring that nagging groin he's had for the last couple weeks. The last couple seasons. So hopefully he's back and they're healthy. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Talent, again, just like San Francisco, talent is, if you like good players and Pro Bowl players, this is the game, right? But having said that, there's an old saying that would get kicked around a lot. Like, we don't always need your best. We would love that. But we need your best when your best is needed. And I don't think there is a team, an individual Jalen Hurts, that encompasses that entire philosophy. They might struggle in the first quarter. They might struggle for 3 quarters. But when everything is on the line and it's do or die time, they just have that thing you can't put your finger on. You can't quantify it. You almost can't coach it. It is just the nature of their culture there and everything they've built that they are at their best when the game is on the line and needed the most. And that is a very powerful tool in this league, because if you only have one pathway to victory, Rich, if this is the only formula we have to play or else the game goes off the rails, you're going to win games throughout the course of the year. But it's going to be very hard to win consistently because each week presents such a unique challenge. They can win a variety of games. Their path to victory can be a million different directions. Those are the teams that find themselves not only in the playoffs, that's obvious. Those are the teams that are the legitimate Super Bowl run, Super Bowl contenders, because every week their margin for error is so big.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.